Probably have to clear that with his wife. So, this morning we are talking about divine ideas. And I know that each and every one of us have had one. Maybe more than one. A divine idea is the kind of idea that comes to you and you're like, yes, that's it. And then everything unfolds in this perfect synchronicity to allow it to happen, right? So we're going to talk about a couple of divine ideas. The first divine idea that I'm going to share with you is the idea of the baggy ministry. Now, several years ago, Reverend Clancy brought it to my attention that in San Diego, there was a church that did this baggie ministry. And it's a Ziploc bag with some food and water and toiletries and socks. The socks, research says the socks are the most important thing you can give a homeless person. And I have seen evidence of that because almost every time I pass out a bag, someone checks it out, their socks. I have literally seen people sit down on the curb, take off their shoes and socks and put on those clean socks.
Although the number one requested by women is tampons.
And I would encourage you to put those in your bags. I just feel a little bit creepy driving around with a box of tampons in my car. Just let's go. I promise to use the slides today.
Lawrence and I were having issues with it, so it's that one thing.
So in these bags, there's not enough to have this person live on forever from that bag. There's enough for a meal. But when Reverend Clancy brought that idea to us, I said, oh, this has to happen. And it was brought to a board meeting on the Sunday that was my last board meeting. I was going off the board. And everybody discussed the idea. And for those of you who have ever been in one of our board meetings, ideas are brought forward and then someone says, well, who's going to do it? And Linda wasn't here at the time. And so...
Whoever had the idea?
Well, that's what Emma Curtis Hopkins says. If the idea comes to you, it's yours to do. Right? So I say, do I have to stay on the board in order to do this thing? And they're like, no. And I said, then I will do it. And I think for 4 years, give or take 4 or 5 years, I ran the baggie ministry, which involved gathering all the stuff, gathering people together to stuff all the stuff in bags, having the bags available for people to take. And then for 4 or 5 years, Beverly Seago took over. And then for just a few short months, our dear friend Ronnie Campbell took over and then moved to Santa Rosa. And now we have new leaders for the baggie ministry, and they are John and Linda Fells. What makes the baggie ministry a divine idea is that it couldn't not happen. To catch the double negative in there, it couldn't not happen. It had to happen. And as I started researching where to find stuff, I found that you could get toothbrushes for 8 cents a piece if you ordered them from a medical supply store. And toothpaste for 9 cents a tube. I mean, these bags cost us $3 or $4 to fill. And yet when you get to hand one of those bags out and connect with the person that you're giving it to, it will change your life. And I know that sounds cliche.
Be visual.
Oh, thank you. For all of you visual learners, this is our bag. And the one thing that is in there that I failed to mention is a note. And the note says, wherever you are, wherever you go, From my heart to yours, I want you to know you are loved. It'll break your heart the first time somebody says, my children love these bags. We were leaving Winco. The guy said that to me. I looked at Justin as we were driving home, and I just got tears rolling down my face because I can almost wrap my head around the fact that there's a homeless man. Almost. But to think that this guy has homeless children? And even if they're not homeless, if he is having to stand at the side of the road to beg, they are in severe need. And a lot of people in the community told me, well, you're not really solving the homelessness problem. And I said, I'm not trying. And they're like, well, then why are you giving baggies to the homeless? Because it is more blessed to give than to receive. And the amount of blessings that we have gotten as a congregation by giving out these bags is phenomenal. So there's a whole fresh batch back there. Take those divine ideas and take them into the community. That's the first one. We'll get to some others. Let us start with this quote from Ernest Holmes. There is no separation between creator and creation. They are one and the same thing. They are different sides of the same coin. When we think about it, is not this the way everything is created? Is not everything made out of that which cannot be seen? Is not the invisible always becoming visible in accord with a form or pattern? What about that rose bush in the garden? There must be some thought, plan, or pattern for its structure, which defies man's engineering skill and even his ability to comprehend fully the way it operates. In what mind did that idea originate? Not ours. It had to be a mind greater than ours. That mind which also expresses as our mind, and of which our minds are a part. So I love the illustration in here of the rose bush. Every single one of us are co-creating our lives, and yet not a single person in this room created a rose bush. We live in a magnificent world, and it was all created out of one mind. It thought, rose bush. That's just one bush. I mean, how many hundreds of different kinds of roses are there, right? Now, on Valentine's Day, florists know that roses are a divine idea because roses make money on Valentine's Day. But the truth is that we can have a divine idea of our own and implement it with almost no effort whatsoever, because the divine ideas come with their own divine energy, and so you don't have to worry about how it's going to happen. See, when God creates, God moves upon God. This is the starting point of creation. Every time one conceives an idea, it is God expressing himself or herself. Every time one conceives an idea, it is God expressing itself. Another divine idea. Have you looked at the artwork in this room? Before service today, I was talking with someone and they're like, these people just drive around all the time and snap pictures because, and I'm like, I suspect not. I think they drive around until a divine idea comes and they say, that's a photograph, right? I mean, Jenny here, stand up, Jenny. Jenny is one of the 2 photographers who is showing here for the next 2 months. And I didn't get to come Friday night to the show, so I did a little tour this morning as I came in, and they're beautiful. It's like a little snapshot of these divine ideas. These little pictures that say, if I just framed it this way, it would be perfect. And see, isn't that how life is? If I could just reframe it this way, it could be perfect. Next. Behind every effect, there is a cause. And if this cause is a spiritual idea, which it must be, then it follows that should the spiritual ideas be discerned, the physical effect would be like it. The entire possibility of demonstrating the law of good depends upon this proposition. The idea is father to the fact. Ideas are real, having the power within themselves to be made manifest. The very nature, the very way that God operates says that if you can come up with an idea, it can be accomplished. And O'Neill sent me a video, or tagged me in a video or something. I had played the video of the one-armed dancer dancing with the one-legged dancer. She sent me a video of a violinist. Breathtaking. She's got this one arm missing, and she has this little apparatus. Apparently there's still bone there. There has to be. And she puts the bow over the violin, and with her shoulder muscle plays the violin.
Wow.
She's got this little apparatus thing on the violin so that the bow will stay where it's supposed to stay, and she just plays with her. It's poetic. I mean, I've seen lots of violinists play, and they play beautifully. And if you see Patrick Contreras play, he is one with the instrument. This woman was truly one with her instrument, and it was a divine idea. Hers was to play the violin. It didn't matter that she only had one arm. So, when divine ideas come, the question is, are we going to say, yeah, but, because we've got some kind of a limitation that says, you can't really do that? Too often we say, yeah, but. And so I want to talk to you about 3 things regarding divine ideas. The first is, how do we make ourselves available to hear and perceive divine ideas? Yesterday, as I was working on my talk, I was really hoping that my husband was going to be well enough, mid to late afternoon, to take a break with me and swim. I like to swim around 3 o'clock in the afternoon because by that point, the trees are shading my pool, and lily white is really hard to maintain in the sun. And so I wait until around 3, but he wasn't well. And I was really frustrated. And I was just like, I want him to join me. And at that moment, I scrolled up on my talk. And the first way to make yourself available to divine ideas is to spend time alone. See, you're not ever going to learn anything when you're talking. You're only going to regurgitate that which you already know. But if you spend time alone, the likelihood of you talking is less, not absent. We all talk to ourselves, I know that. But I find that when I am alone, it is when there's the least amount of chatter. And so, I don't really love to swim, but I love my pool. And so I get in, and I just walk back and forth across the shallow end. You would be surprised what kind of resistance water will provide for you. My legs and my feet, and will not go anywhere else, are sore because I have recently started this walking in the pool, back and forth, back and forth. Only my dogs pacing back and forth with me. They don't want to get in the water. And I realized that even though I wanted to be spending time with Justin, I had an opportunity to put into practice what I was going to talk about. To spend that time alone. See, when we spend time alone, there's not voices from outside. There's only voices from inside. And even all of the voices from inside aren't our voices. They're the voices that we've heard, the voices that we think we ought to be listening to, the messages of shoulds and shouldn'ts. But when you get quiet and you get alone, you can begin to hear those divine ideas. Next, develop some daily rituals. Develop a spiritual practice. Now, I suspect that everyone in this room is either doing that or trying to do that because that's why you're here. I had somebody tell me that the reason they don't come to Sunday service anymore is because, well, they were raised in this, they know it all, they don't need to hear it anymore. And I thought, how delightful for them. I need the reminder every single week. And I just so happen to, point number 3, like to gather together with like-minded individuals. People who are going to support the fact that you're looking for a divine idea. Now, in my counseling, quite frequently, people will share with me things that they really hope to accomplish. And I always encourage them not to cast their pearls before swine. This is an expression that comes from the New Testament. And it's basically the premise of don't put out your precious things in front of people who aren't going to understand the value of them and therefore just trample on them. So the benefit of getting together with like-minded individuals is that when you get that divine idea, you can say, Florence, guess what? And Florence is going to say, yes. She's not going to say, well, that's ridiculous. How are you going to afford that? No. You want to share those divine ideas with people who are going to support your mission. That is why we come together. I am here to support Deb, because Deb supports me. And I'm here to support Nathan and Natalie. You're Sharon, right? I'm here to support Sharon. We're here to support each other in the divine ideas that come our way. Now, we get quiet, we spend time alone, we develop a practice, and we let the people around us be people who are going to encourage us. And then we trust the process. Now, I am guessing every single one of you have had one of those things. I think Jamie probably took a trip to Australia on a divine idea. Yeah? And it unfolded. And you had a wonderful time. So here's a story of a guy who trusted a divine idea. He and his wife were starting a support teaching school for children called Little Acorns. And the purpose of this was to teach self-esteem and such qualities to young children so that they wouldn't get into trouble. It was a divine idea for them, and yet they had spent most of their savings in order to make it happen. They were living in Miami, and they got a flyer about an educational conference in San Diego. They knew they needed to be there. They had spent their savings trying to get the school started. So the husband says to the wife, it's time to make some phone calls. First phone call he makes is to the people who are organizing the conference. He explains to them that they're starting this school and what they're doing and why they just really need to be at this conference. And then says, boldly, will you give me 2 complimentary passes to the convention? And they said yes. Step 1. Next, he says to his wife, we've got tickets to the conference. She's like, yeah, but we're in Miami. So he happens to know at that time that Northeast Airlines was doing really well. So he calls their headquarters, gets transferred to the president, and explains to him, hey, this is what my wife and I are doing, and I got the conference people to give me free admission. Would you fly my wife and I round trip from Miami to San Diego? And without batting an eye, the president says, yes. Thank you so much for asking. And the guy says, excuse me? He says, most people don't give me an opportunity to do the thing which I love the most, and that's to help people. So thank you for asking. See, a lot of times we shy away from asking for something because we're afraid that we're imposing upon somebody, when in reality, it's really a gift to be able to give. And so now they've got admission to the conference and airfare. And the wife says, yeah, but where are we going to stay? So he calls his local Holiday Inn and asks, where are the headquarters for Holiday Inn? find out that they're in Tennessee. Call Tennessee. Tennessee routes them to an individual in San Francisco who is in charge of all of the Holiday Inns for all of California. And the guy once again explains his story, how he got the fare to get into the conference and how he got the airfare to get there. And the guy says, yeah, I'd be delighted. We have a brand new Holiday Inn in downtown San Diego. He's like, but I want to tell you, it's, looking at the map here, it's about 35 miles to the campus where you're going to be having this event. And he says, I'll buy a horse if I have to. So now he has a place to stay. So he tells his wife, she's like, well, how are we going to get back and forth? So he calls National Car Rentals. And he tells them about the conference, about his need to be there, about the airfare, about the hotel. And they say, well, would you like a new Olds 88 to drive back and forth? Yes. Divine ideas happen like that. One thing after another lines up so that you cannot deny, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And see, for me, and I don't know if this is a handicap or a blessing, if something is difficult, if something is causing me angst and stress to accomplish, I usually stop. Because for me, it means it's not something I'm supposed to be doing. Now, that gets me into a little bit of trouble every now and then with the board because they're like, well, but you've got these things to do. And I'm like, I wasn't enjoying it. And they're like, well, okay. When things unfold perfectly, when things happen effortlessly, it's supposed to happen. Now, one of the things that I had been avoiding on the board, true confession, was we have a certain member who has some light sensitivity. And she's asked us to put some kind of roller blinds on the front windows because there's a little bit of a glare. And for months I avoided it because it seemed like it was going to be a really difficult task. And last week at the board meeting, Bev very gently said, we approved money for this, why hasn't it been done? And I'm like, I'll do it. I promise, I'll do it. They're ordered, they will be delivered, and then they'll be installed by the 25th of September. No applause for me on that. I resisted and resisted because I thought it was going to be hard. And then I got online, and I went to HomeDepot.com, and I got out my measuring tape, and I measured the windows, and sure enough, they can custom make them. Yeah. They'll roll up and down beautifully. Divine idea, right? Now, she's smiling and giggling so the people around her know who she is. It's Bonnie here who has migraines. She's light sensitive because of them. And so I hope that this not only blesses you, but everybody else who has any kind of light sensitivity. And I see other hands. See, those divine ideas that are supposed to happen effortlessly. Now, some of the other things that we're wanting to do here at the center include the possibility of adding a second service. And I probably spoke out of turn a little bit by saying, in October we're starting. And then board members were getting approached and saying, what's going on? Tell us about this. How are we going to afford this? What are we doing? It's not time. I don't know why. I don't have to know why. I just know that it's not perfectly unfolding right now, and so it's on pause. It'll probably happen after the first of the year. But it's on pause because while I know that it's a divine idea, it's not a divine idea whose time has come. And so I know that there are experiences in our lives where you're like, I just know that's the right thing to do. It just, no other thing can be the right thing. It's it. And yet, it's not unfolding. Well, that simply means it hasn't come yet. And when it does come, and it unfolds perfectly, you'll be like, oh, I was supposed to wait for that. So I would encourage you, take some time to be alone. Answer for yourself the questions about what's the next great thing? What's the divine idea for my life? Because every one of us is here as a divine emissary. We're all here to be divine to one another. And so therefore, there has to be a divine idea for our lives. And if we can get quiet long enough, if we can shut out social media, the news, the chatter, and just listen, we can get to the place where we begin to hear those divine ideas, and they will unfold for us. Let's pray. So I know that there is only the divine. That every idea that comes to me is coming to me through the mind of God. Because I am one within the mind of God, as each one of us here are one in the mind of God. We are creators, just as God is a creator. And we are able, with the power of God, to create the lives we want. To create the life that God wants for us. And so I'm so deeply grateful to know that when those divine ideas come, they come with the energy necessary to implement them. They come with all of the instructions necessary to make them happen. To simply sit back and let them happen. And so I'm so deeply grateful to know that all I have to do is listen for that idea, allow it to be so. Allow Spirit to bring it to my mind, and allow myself to make it happen. And so with gratitude, I can simply let that be. And so it is. Now, it is time for our offering. And Edward has another song for us. This one is purely instrumental. I got to hear the rehearsal of it. You're going to love it. We have a new offering affirmation, so if you weren't here last week for the debut reading of it, please pay attention to the words up there. The ushers can come forward and collect our offering. And please repeat with me our offering affirmation. I freely and joyously give from the abundance and fullness of my overflowing love, knowing my gift goes with love as it touches and blesses the world. And so it is. Now, if you're joining us on Facebook and you would like to give an offering, you may go to cslvisalia.org and make your contribution there.